There are some stories that just they sound too crazy to be real, too dark, too secret, almost like something out of a movie. But this one is real. It was a secret program buried deep inside the CIA that didn't just blur the line between science and nightmares, it completely erased it. This is the real story of MKUltra, the project the US government desperately tried to make disappear. And that's exactly what it was. I mean, think about that. The goal wasn't just to understand the mind, but to get in there, take it apart, and put it back together however they wanted. It's terrifying.
All right, so how on earth does something this extreme even get off the ground? Well, to get that, you have to rewind the clock to the early 1950s, right to the peak of the Cold War.
Paranoia was in the air. The CIA was absolutely convinced that the Soviets and the Chinese had figured out some kind of secret brainwashing technique. They were seeing American POVs come back completely changed, and the fear was that the US was falling behind in a new kind of war, a psychological arms race. And well, they were willing to do just about anything to catch up. So, this was their answer. Project MKUltra. And the CIA director himself, Alan Dulles, signed off on it. But the most chilling part of this whole thing? It's those two words right there. Unwitting subjects. That was their official green light to experiment on American citizens without anyone knowing and without anyone giving consent. And you have to understand, this wasn't just one or two little experiments. Oh no, this thing was a massive, sprawling operation. It was a total catalog of horrors. 149. Just let that number sink in. That's how many different sub-projects were running under the MKUltra umbrella. They were doing this stuff all over the country, in hospitals, in prisons, at universities, even in secret CIA safe houses set up in big cities. Each one was a different, twisted path toward the same goal, total control of the human mind. And the methods? I mean, just look at this list. It reads like a manual on how to break a person. They were trying everything you can possibly imagine to push the mind past its breaking point. But out of all of this, one tool became their absolute obsession. They thought they'd found the golden key. And that key was LSD. They looked at this incredibly powerful hallucinogen and didn't just see a drug. They saw a weapon. They thought, hey, could this make a spy spill all their secrets? Could we use it to literally wipe someone's memory clean? Or what if we could implant new memories or new loyalties? These weren't just theories. These were the questions they were dead set on answering. And this is where the story shifts from being about a top-secret government program to a series of awful, personal tragedies. Because this quest for a chemical key to the mind came at a staggering human cost. I mean, can you even imagine? You're just going about your day, and then suddenly, with no warning, your entire reality just shatters into a nightmare of hallucinations, and you have no idea why. That's what they did to countless people, mental patients, prisoners, even just regular folks. They specifically went after the most vulnerable people they could find. It gets even darker. In one of the most disgusting sub-projects, which they called Operation Midnight Climax, the CIA actually hired sex workers to bring men back to these safe houses, dose their drinks with LSD, and then CIA agents would just sit behind one-way mirrors watching and taking notes as these men's minds completely unraveled. This wasn't science, let's be real. It was state-funded torture. Now, a lot of the victims of MKUltra will forever be anonymous. But one story really stands out, and it's become this powerful symbol of just how far off the rails this program went. And what's so crazy is that Frank Olson wasn't a prisoner or some random guy. He was one of their own. He's at a work meeting with his colleagues, and someone spikes his drink with a heavy dose of LSD. No warning, no asking for permission, no explanation. He was turned into a human guinea pig by the very people he worked with. That experience completely broke him. He fell into this deep spiral of paranoia and terror. He apparently told his family he'd made a terrible mistake. And then, just 9 days after they drugged him, he fell to his death from a hotel window on the 13th floor in New York City. The official story for decades was suicide, but his family, they never bought it. And years later, after digging and digging, it came out that he might have been getting ready to expose the whole program. Was he silenced? It's a dark question that still hangs over the entire story of MKUltra. Look, A program this dark was never going to stay secret forever, and once the walls started to close in, the CIA did what you'd expect. They tried to bury the evidence.
So for 20 years, this all happened in the shadows. But then, in 1973, you've got the Watergate scandal blowing up, and people are starting to distrust the government. The CIA director Richard Helms gives a very simple order: destroy it all. It took another 2 years before a special Senate investigation, called the Church Committee, finally dragged the horrifying truth out into the light.
And when he said destroy it all, he meant it. They burned thousands and thousands of pages of research, of notes, of evidence. The only reason we know any of this today is because a few boxes of files were accidentally put in the wrong place and survived the bonfire. It's chilling to think about what was in those files they burned. What other things did they do that we will never, ever know about?
The program was eventually shut down, but its ghost is still with us. The legacy of MKUltra is one of trauma, of deep-seated distrust, and it's left a permanent stain on our history.
And let's be really clear here. This wasn't just a misstep or a mistake. This was a systematic, top-to-bottom violation of medical ethics, of human rights, and of the basic trust that's supposed to exist between a government and its people. The fallout was just devastating. You have survivors left with lifelong psychological scars from these terrifying experiences they couldn't even explain. You have a public that learned it couldn't trust its own government's secrets. And the project is now this permanent warning sign of what can happen when scientific curiosity gets completely detached from our own humanity. And maybe that's the real lesson here, right? In their obsessive quest to weaponize the human mind, the people behind this program completely lost touch with what it even means to be human in the first place. Remember, MKUltra wasn't a sci-fi movie. It was real. Real money funded it, real leaders approved it, and real people carried it out. And it leaves us with this one final, really haunting question. It makes you wonder, what other lines might be getting crossed right now, in secret, all in the name of keeping us safe?